So, as I wait for the bus, I wanted to talk about basically a curiosity that I've had. When it was first announced that Tiny Toons University was going to be coming out, and now that it's out, I was always wondering. It's like, okay, what are they going to have in it? Like, we kind of knew what characters they would have and everything, which we were happy to see. But the obvious question also is, like, what gags would they have? Like, what gags from the original Tiny Toons would we see? And one of my curious questions was, would we get the Lustful melt gag or the melting gag, period? And, well, I had a feeling we might get it to an extent. We might get it, to an extent and everything. I had a feeling. Hold on for a sec. Like I was saying, I had a feeling we might get it and everything. At least the melting, not the Lustful melt one. I'm not sure if that one's been seen yet in the first 10 episodes. That you can binge watch on, Max right now. That'll be premiering weekly on Saturday mornings on Cartoon Network. But, like I said, I was also wondering about the melting gag itself. Would we see it? And lo and behold, according to somebody at one of the Tiny Toons Facebook group pages, because I asked the question, hey, was it in there? And some of them did answer like, oh, we're not really sure, we didn't notice. And the way I rephrased it was, okay, was it the Lustful melt gag and everything? Like, was it, the one that, we've seen before? And I didn't get much of an answer. Like I said, what I ended up getting was basically an answer of, well, not really sure and everything, like we're not really sure. So what happened was, basically I asked again, I kind of rephrased the question, and I asked, okay, is the melting gag in there? And I do apologize, that's a train going by. But I asked, is the melting gag, like basically characters melting as they did in the OG, in there? Is it in, the new show? And one person commented back, and they said, well, and again, I do apologize for the train. One person commented back and said, well, kind of, sort of, but not in the traditional sense. Not in the traditional sense. And what they explained was, it was in the first episode. A bit of spoilers in case you haven't seen it. But there's this, in the first episode, which is basically the orientation episode, there's an exam they have to take. It's almost like a talent show, like exam. But it's called a gag exam. So Buster and Babs, along with Plucky and other Toons, have to do this talent-like show, focusing on gags to get a passing grade as part of their exam. And Plucky, he basically does a parody of Black Swan. That's right. Everybody was wondering, okay, would they touch upon other shows and everything in media? And what they touched upon was, with Plucky, was Black Swan. They had him parody the Black Swan movie. So what happened next was, after Plucky was Buster and Babs. And of course, the way they're playing up Plucky is he thinks he's better. He doesn't think Buster and Babs are going to outdo him. And he's going to win the gag exam and all that, Well, what happens is not only do Buster and Babs outperform him, if you will, not only do they outperform him, but they do it in a way that basically shocks. It shocks Plucky, and it kind of puts the judges, which are, from last I saw, two of them were Bugs and Daffy, puts them in awe at what Buster and Babs are doing. Because Buster and Babs, they start out doing like a little dance with each other, and then, with a sly look on each face, they kind of snap their fingers, and they basically have the spotlight basically turned off on them, and instead you see them in a silhouette, like a shadowy silhouette, where they continue to perform. They continue to perform in everything. And what happens is that one of the performances that they do, one of the dance routines they do, is Buster basically gets on top of Babs' head, like he's standing on his own head. So basically it's head to head, if you will. And they literally melt into each other. No joke. They literally melt into each other, into a puddle that instead of reforming, it basically flies up, and you see like this little like paint effect on the screen, and then basically you see like this puddle that they become, that they melted into, become like a black hole that basically erupts into a top hat and everything. And it's just a big extravaganza that obviously wins them the exam, obviously that they pass with, in the exam, for their exam. But yeah, again, when I asked, was the melting gag in there, the lustful melt gag, I asked that at first, and then I asked, well, what about the gag itself, the melting trope itself? And like I said, one person replied back and said, yeah, it was sort of. And again, what they told me I had to look into, and I did. I looked into it, and like I said, it was used when Buster and Babs basically did the routine, and Buster was standing head first, or standing on his head, head to head, basically like standing on his head on top of Babs' head, and they literally melt into each other. And it's like, okay, obviously it's in there, but it's done in a very creative way. It's done in a very creative way because, I wouldn't have thought that, they would use the gag in that manner. They would actually go that far with that gag. The last time we saw the melting trope, have a character utilize something like that, in my opinion, from my past watching, was Nickelodeon's Secret World of Alex Mack. And in the later seasons of that show, she had gained the ability to morph into liquid, not just herself, but inanimate objects, as well as people, like her friend Ray, like her sister, like her parents in the finale. She was able to do all this. She was able to do all this, in the later seasons. So to see it get utilized here, as I drink some C4, but to see it utilized in this manner, I think it's very creative, because now, to me, what you've done is you've given Buster and Babs, the Luniversity run of Tiny Toons, you've given Buster and Babs basically some kind of character trait. A trait that I don't know if they'll utilize it later on, if they put out more episodes for the first season or what. But you've given them a character trait to where they could literally, merge together by melting. You gave them that trait. As siblings, they could literally melt into each other into a puddle and maybe even fuse together, which is an interesting concept. I think it's really interesting, to see that. So my question is, will we see it again? Will we see that? Will we see this little fun trait of theirs where they can melt into each other, into a big old puddle? Will we see that again, or is it just a one-time deal? I'm hoping we do, and I'm hoping along with that we do see the lustful melt gag. I really do. I do hope we see the lustful melt gag, because again, you can't have Tiny Toons of any kind. You can't have Tiny Toons of any kind, just, basically show up and not have a gag like that in there. You can't. So to me, I'm hoping we do see it. I'm hoping we do see this little trait that they now have, as I look at it, this new little trait where they can melt into each other. I hope we see that again. And I hope we see it be done in a way to where they can fuse together. Maybe even they acknowledge it in future episodes. That we do this, and what we do is we melt into, and maybe they acknowledge that they've done it before, and that one time they did it to fuse one individual. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But again, interesting usage of the gag or the trope. And this also, and again, I'm hoping this does lead to the melting trope, melting gag being used more, as well as I hope, and I think it will be leading us to seeing the lustful melt gag, where a character melts at the sight and the attraction of somebody else. I hope we do see it. I really do. And what's crazy is this does kind of stay in I guess you could say in tone with Tiny Toons as a whole, because we know Buster melted in the Looney beginning when he got kissed by Babs when she was pretending to be Jessica Rabbit. We know that outside of that, the first, I guess you could say, real melting gag, melting trope that occurred outside of the pilot was Babs in Europe in 30 minutes. So it's nice to see that at least they're kind of keeping in, keeping that tradition, if you will, going in a unique kind of manner. I really do. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know what your thoughts were when you saw the melting gag be utilized the way it was by Buster and Babs. Do you think we'll see more of them melting into a puddle together, maybe fusing? Let me know. And let me know if maybe they might, let me know if you think, they might, build upon it. Maybe we find out more. Let me know what your thoughts are. Also, let me know if you think this is going to lead towards the lustful melt gag, where a character melts at the attraction of another. Let me know if you think it's going to lead to that. And until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later. But yeah, give me your thoughts. And my bus is about here, so that's all I really wanted to say. Hey, all that. But let me know, and I'll talk to you later.